Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
So you're joining me out local this evening, potentially for sunset. I'll see how I get on. And I'm just in a little bit of a loop, to be honest. I just want to get some steps in, enjoy a walk, and hopefully find some nice things to photograph along the way. You can see behind me, we're in a bit of a woodland scene at the minute. However, I think I'm just going to kind of power through this little section unless something really catches my eye, just because I don't really fancy photographing woodland at the minute. And yeah, just a little bit further down this way is just a really nice section of coast, from memory anyway. I've only ever been there a couple of times, even though it is very local really. And the last time I came here was ages ago. Honestly, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago. And I find it really inspiring. You know, you all probably do it where you shoot local, but you kind of cycle through and recycle all of the different photography locations that you tend to visit. Let's say, for argument's sake, you've got like 20 spots, maybe even listed physically, and you just kind of recycle them all and go through them. And yeah, there's something about that I've always found really inspiring. Yes, I love traveling for photography and going away in my van from time to time, which I need to do again soon. I haven't done that in ages. And yeah, but you know, I think the bread and butter really, especially for getting better and better at photography slowly and slowly, is the local shooting, isn't it? And yeah, I think it's really inspiring to think, wow, this is a real local spot that I haven't been to for potentially like 3 years, like I said. So I was just walking nice and slowly down this beautiful little coastal path, looking off into the distance at the promise of some nice wider vistas. And I looked to my right, you can see my bag down on the floor. And you just spotted this beautiful little plant here that's obviously flowering so much. I think it's called mallow. And aside from, I think anyway, being really photogenic, I'm going to give it a go. You can actually have this as a tea, the leaves and the flower, I think. And it's like a bit of a herbal remedy for inflammation, digestive issues, things like that. But yeah, for now, I'm not going to be munching away or drinking it. I'm going to see if we can get a photograph of it. I'm out with the Nikon Z7 with my 24 to 200mm lens, and of course my wide angle, my 14 to 30mm lens as well. A few of you asked me, why do I switch between my Nikon Z7, my Nikon system and my OM system. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to it. Honestly, it's just a case of I went out a few days ago with my Nikon system and left my bag on the floor in my office, and the spare batteries are still charged, so it was just easier to grab. Do you know what? Since I've done photography, I guess now for quite a number of years, like several years, there's loads of things like bits of advice that kind of mean well, but they sort of wind me up a little bit. And something I'm doing here now is a good example of one of them, but some other examples are always shoot at your base ISO, always shoot at ISO 100 or 64 in my case, or get the biggest sensor that you can afford to buy. These sorts of things that, on the face of it, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But then, for example, someone might not want a big sensor for their own personal reasons. In the ISO example, you might need to raise your ISO because you need a quicker shutter speed. You might need to raise it because you're shooting handheld. You know, it's got like, there's another side to the coin, like it could actually end up being bad advice. But none over the years has wound me up more than this one. People hate using a center column on a tripod, and I get it. It's like less stable, slightly. It's not really that much of a big deal though, is it? But I suppose technically it is. But the thing's there to be used, man. It's madness, like, and some people get so funny about using a center column. You know, like, I'd buy a tripod without one if I really didn't want to use it. But, I mean, this is a good example of when the center column's brilliant. I need to adjust my height here for this photograph, simply just because, well, height's really important with this photograph because it's an intimate image and I need to be kind of dead on with these flowers, so it needs to be correct to the centimetre pretty much. And rather than faffing around with the legs like this, all 3 legs on a slant already, trying to make it higher, because, oh, I don't want to use my centre column. It's not very stable. It's, I mean, each to their own at the end of the day. But for me, see, look, I've messed the composition up now. For the sake of doing that, up and down. That's what it's there for. Rant over. Now, for this image, I was going to shoot kind of a little bit wider and just get the whole sort of plant. What drew me to it was obviously the plant and the flower in the first place. But that's not usually enough for me. There needs to be, unless it's like a really striking subject, there needs to be something else. And here it was the limestone behind it. So I looked at it and instantly thought, oh, I could make a really nice simple image of a photograph of the flower of the plant with a very simple background. And that's what made me want to stop and get the camera out. But I'm zooming in way further than I thought. I'm in at about 150 millimeters here, and I'm getting an image where I've tried to think about almost every pixel in the photograph, as you should do with any composition really. The tripod's great. You know, it does allow you to slow down quite a lot. And I know, you know, there's the argument that you can slow down just as much shooting handheld, and that's true, you can. But personally for me, like having this just on the tripod, I can make tiny little micro adjustments. I can chill out and without my composition being changed and stuff, you know, because the tripod, the camera's just sat there on the tripod, things like that. But yeah, it's just, it's allowed me to slow down a little bit, and I guess really try and fine tune this composition. And I might even go in a little bit further. I'll try and show you the photograph here now on the back of the camera. So hopefully you can see the composition I'm working with there. And like I said, I've tried to make everything fit in the frame. It's all deliberate. Even that little bit of grass there at the bottom left, I've placed there on purpose because I just feel like it fills in that section nicely. The only trouble I'm having here, which is quite unusual, I guess I wouldn't usually take these sorts of photographs, is its focus. It's quite hard. So I'm shooting f11 just as a bit of a fail-safe. This is a bit of a belts and braces approach that I like to do. And I'm just going to take various different focal points and actually do a focus stack. So like, I've just got the old touch shutter on. I've still got the 2-second timer on. So that one was focused on the leaf. Then I'll do one focused on the flower. And then I'll do one even focused on, oh, that little leaf in the background there, just to make sure that all points are covered. I was just thinking then about that little micro rant about the centre columns and bits of photography advice that have annoyed me and stuff. I guess the way to think about it is, if there's other options, whatever the advice is in photography, if there are other options available, why do they exist? Like, why does the centre column exist? You've got to ask that question if people say not to use it. Why the higher ISO values exist? Why can you buy smaller sensors? You know, there is, and like I said before, you know, if you know even the basics of photography, it's well-meant advice. You know, keep your ISO as low as you can, get the biggest sensor you can afford. From one side of things, it makes complete sense, of course it does, but it just shows how personal I think photography is. You've got to find your own rhythm, do things your own way, buy things that suit you as a photographer. All of these things that I've covered loads on this channel, I think it's really important. I think as photographers, or you know, when you're starting out with anything, you take as much advice as you can get, and it's generally fantastic. It's, you know, such a steep learning curve at first, but I think there comes a point where you have to make your own decisions a little bit more. Going back to the sensor thing, you know, you might deliberately want a smaller sensor. Like, I love my OM5 because it's so small and it's so light, and I'll take the hit on a little bit of image quality and stuff like that perhaps, because there's so many other things about a camera than just a sensor. I know it's important, but there is, isn't there? This, by the way, has some nice history behind it. This is, I mean, quite obviously a chimney, and this was built, I almost don't believe it, but this was built in the 1780s. Although I guess by UK or European standards or whatever, that's not really old, is it? But up until relatively recently, people actually didn't know what this was for. People couldn't figure it out. And then the area was excavated and they found out it was used to purify metal. So things like copper ore would come here. So, you know, like rocks full of copper, and it'd be put into the chimney, into the kiln, burnt at a really high temperature, and then you get the kind of pure melted copper out of it. I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting. And I shan't get a photograph of it because I got this image probably when I was last here, like I was saying at the start of the video, 3 years ago or something. And I really liked it. I haven't got the image on me, but from memory, you're seeing it now, so I could be completely wrong. I felt like, and I've always felt like with that chimney, that you need something on the left-hand side of the frame. And I think on that particular day, we had some nice stormy clouds just helping to balance out that left-hand side. Oh man, it is so peaceful. I'll be honest with you, I was going to go on a hike today, quite a big one, but it was just quite warm, which I usually like. But I don't know, it just put me off a bit for some reason today. So this was actually second best. I was mad to come out with my camera, so I thought, well, I'll just go out locally. And every single time I do that, it's always good. In fact, just every single time you go out with your camera, as I'm sure you can agree, it's always good. And absolutely no photo shoot for me springs to mind where it was really bad. I know you get really grim weather and that at times, and sometimes it can be difficult to find the motivation and stuff. Oh, it's just always good, isn't it, to be outdoors? That's why I love photography, because that's what it brings me. What's this say here now? Oh man, these are everywhere around here, local to me. I think it's Clafton. It's just under where I've wiped there, but it's like a brick company in Caton. It's just the other side of Caton, near Lancaster City. And I've even got some of these in my garden. These Clafton bricks are everywhere. Look at this, man. Flipping hell, what an evening. I know we've had a few bits of rain and wind and that here in the UK, as per usual, but I think for the most part, since Easter, it's been absolutely unreal, hasn't it? Maybe not necessarily for the old photography, but I said in my newsletter last week, I think, where I usually just have some little pointless chats for the most part. Go and sign up. Sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Pointless chats, but just, there'll be a link in the description below if you want to sign up anyway. I just have some chats on it. Yeah, I just said I've been enjoying a lot of local walks and stuff. Do you know one thing I think I'm very good at as a landscape photographer? I think maybe not good at, but I think I thrive as a photographer when I'm at a location for the first time. You know, that first time excitement at a new location. You've never been there before and you're just taking it all in, and it's fantastic. I was just thinking about it then. I had a little look back across the bay here and I was thinking, wouldn't it be good if I could like erase all of this from my mind, you know, rather than it being so familiar to me. I think the familiarity sometimes can actually be a burden. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever. Please comment down below, you know, what sort of photographer are you? It seems to me like most landscape photographers are very good at going back to the same spots all the time. Oh, is the light starting to come out there? That's fantastic. But yeah, I think I just work well with that kind of initial excitement of a new location and a new experience. There's a really cool tree. I don't know if you can see it. It's just around about there. And I think it's worth getting down there and having a little investigation. There it is. Oh, how mad is that? Am I on a mad one here? Is that a piece of driftwood that somebody has slotted into that crack? Or is that a tree? What is going on here? I tell you what, I think it's a bit of driftwood, isn't it? I'm going to pretend it's a tree. I reckon I could get a cool wide angle photograph here or something. So I've just got to wait for a few minutes because the light isn't quite right, and it's a massively important part of this photograph. But whilst we chill here for a few minutes, which isn't bad, let's be honest, I would love to take the opportunity to say another big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, if you've never heard of Squarespace, they are simply a website building platform. It's a website that you go onto to build your own website. And the best thing about them, as far as I'm concerned anyway, is that it is so easy, man. I think it's such a shame that people have these dreams to build their own website, but they get put off because they see it as being so complicated and so, you know, out of reach to them, and maybe so expensive as well. But honestly, there'll be a link in the video description below. Go and have a quick look at Squarespace if you've ever wanted to. They've got templates, and it's a drag and drop system. It is so easy. My own website is through them, and I'm so proud of it. On top of that, they've also got award-winning customer service. So even if you do find some bits of it a little bit tricky, which I'm sure you won't, I certainly didn't, you can chat to them and they'll help you out, which is brilliant. And not only do I use my Squarespace website to, of course, showcase my photographs, I like, you know, people seeing them a little bit bigger and stuff. I write blogs on there, but I also sell stuff, and you can do that as well. You know, you might want to have a go at selling some prints like I do. It's really important to me. I wouldn't be able to run my business without it. So another big thank you to them. Like I said, there'll be a link in the video description below, or go to squarespace.com/Henry Turner. And that will actually get you a 14-day free trial as well. I forgot to mention that. So give it a go. Why not? You've got nothing to lose. You don't even have to spend at first. And if you like your free trial, make sure to use the offer code Henry Turner at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. My frigging lens cap gone for that now. It's in my pocket. I've got it. I've got it. So weirdly here, another situation where the center column is working. I need to put you down a tiny bit so you can see. Just a tiny little gap, about a centimetre higher than just being in its kind of standard position. And it's making all the difference with this photograph because, again, height is so important. And again, same as the flower image, which is really interesting. I'll get into it in a second, but this is all about centimetres. That's how important the height is. And what's interesting here, I think, is that this is being shot at 14mm, right? And the image with the flowers was shot at, what, 150, 170mm or something like that? Maybe even a bit further by the time I was recomposing it and stuff. I can't really remember. But it just goes to show that the importance of height when it comes to composition does not discriminate with focal lengths either. You know, 14mm ultra wide angle versus telephoto. Height is so important. So it's an image that is gonna definitely be in a 16:9, and yeah, 14mm. All I'm doing here technically is making sure that I'm shooting at f/18. So I'm glad I brought the tripod out with me because it means I can keep my ISO nice and low. And that's to get a sun start. I'm just waiting, it's probably only gonna be another minute, just waiting for the sun to dip down behind some of these lower clouds here. So we've got him in the frame, and we're gonna get hopefully anyway, a really nice sunburst effect on the right-hand side of this image. So you remember what I was saying before about those like weird bits of advice that on the face of it, they are right, it's correct. Like, you know, always shoot at a low ISO, don't use your center column, but they don't kind of cover all scenarios, do they? A couple more I just thought of actually is when people say, use a tripod to get sharp photos. Again, on the face of it, it makes complete sense. And I think it's great advice for beginners, but you don't need a tripod to get good photos. It's a bit more complicated than that. And then, you know, always shoot at golden hour. Again, yeah, it's like the best light, but you're missing out like 90% of the day and you're limiting yourself for absolutely no reason. Some of my favorite photographs are outside the golden hours. Basically, what I wanted to ask is, can you think of any more? Any of them like weird bits of advice, maybe stuff that winds you up a little bit, maybe stuff that you really believed when you were a beginner, but when you grew into your photography, you realized it wasn't quite right, or it wasn't quite right for you. But again, it's that kind of weird thing where on the face of it, it is actually good advice. But thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a wonderful little evening. I shall see you on the next adventure. Out.